Hey everyone, Chris Quarto here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Adult Autism, a Spectrum of Uniqueness podcast. Let me do something a little different to start off this podcast episode. I'm going to tell you a story. A few years ago, I worked with an autistic adult who told me, I've been wearing my mask for so long that I don't even know if I'm pretending anymore. They described going through each day feeling like they were reading from a script someone else wrote, just kind of managing every expression, every reaction, every word. One day, after a long social interaction, they sat in their car and felt completely drained. They didn't know how much longer they could keep this up. And this was sort of a turning point for them, but it also posed a dilemma. On the one hand, they were sick and tired of masking all the time because of how it impacted them. But on the other hand, they were afraid to take the mask off because of how people might react to them. And I think that's a universal experience among most autistic adults who mask. Well, I decided to delve into this a little more by asking a group of autistic adults on an autism Facebook group what prevents them from unmasking. And I'm going to share with you 15 reasons why they felt unmasking is risky, complicated, or even impossible at times. And what I'd like to do, since I'm a psychologist, is to comment on these reasons using insights from trauma-informed therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, time-limited psychodynamic therapy, and motivational interviewing to better understand the emotional and psychological landscape behind masking. And I'll also talk about how to begin experimenting with unmasking in small, safe, meaningful ways, but only if you want to do that, because as an autistic person, that's a pretty big decision. It's a personal decision. And so the goal isn't for me to kind of push you toward anything like to unmask, but really just to help you see the range of options available and whether a particular strategy might feel right for you to unmask. That's what this episode is all about. Not pressuring you, not telling you how you should be, but just maybe giving you some tools, some insights, permission to explore you at your own pace. So with those things in mind, let's start with the reasons why autistic people don't unmask. And by the way, these reasons aren't ranked from the most important reason to the least important. They're just things people mentioned in the survey. So here's the first reason. They said, whenever I unmask, people think I have a bad tone or a bad attitude or that I'm being mean. Yeah, unfortunately, autistic communication often gets a bad rap because neurotypical people misread it. You might show up as yourself and suddenly someone thinks you're irritated or you're cold. The reality is that you're probably not being rude. It's that your natural communication style doesn't match what neurotypical people expect. So from a trauma-informed perspective, past moments where your honesty or your directness was punished can make your nervous system go, nope, not doing that again. That's a survival habit. Now, one thing that you might try in this situation is to practice small unmasking moments with people who are safe. And this begs the question, well, how do you know if a person is safe? That's a really good question, and it's not always immediately obvious, but here's some things to consider. First thing is pay attention to small reactions. And what I mean by this is that safe people respect your preferences. They allow for pauses. They accept your natural tone and don't make negative remarks about stimming or quietness or anything else that kind of characterizes who you are as an autistic person. Look for curiosity instead of judgment on their part. Safe people respond with curiosity, with validation and openness rather than dismissiveness or sarcasm. Here's another thing. Notice how your body feels around them. Your body will probably feel more relaxed or at least less guarded or more comfortable with safe people. And if on the flip side of the coin, tense or hypervigilant with unsafe people. Fourth thing to consider is how they handle boundaries. Safe people don't punish you for saying no or for changing your mind or needing downtime. Unsafe people, on the other hand, may guilt trip you or shame you into doing things that you don't want to do. Number 5, observe how they react when you're struggling. Safe people stay calm and they're supportive and understanding. Unsafe people may blame or invalidate you or maybe get defensive. Here's another thing. Reflect on how you feel afterward. Like if you feel drained, if you feel anxious or smaller as a person after you interact with someone, they may not be safe for you to unmask around. Well, here's something you can do that I call a simple safety test. Share a small truth with the person and see if they respect it without masking or without making it weird or using it against you. Like you might tell them, I get overwhelmed by loud restaurants, or I need time to think before I answer sometimes. Or maybe I'm not up for that today. And if they respect what you said and don't make you feel bad or get you to change your mind, then they're likely a safe person. Okay, let's get back to the reasons. Here's reason number 2 for not unmasking. That was given by this group of autistic adults. There's a fear of not being liked for who I truly am. Unmasked me feels negative or angry. Many autistic adults grew up being told their emotions were too much. So it's no wonder why the real you feels too risky to show most of the time. Now, once again, from a trauma-informed perspective, that fear often comes from past hurt, times when you showed emotion and someone shut you down. So one solution is to validate your feelings before worrying about how others will receive them. So in other words, tell yourself, this is how I feel about X, Y, or Z, and I have a right to feel the way that I do. Okay, reason number 3, I was taught that everyone else's comfort matters more than mine. This is a huge one, especially for autistic adults conditioned to people please. Now, from a motivational interviewing perspective, ask yourself what you want your life to look like if your comfort mattered too. And if you want to give something a try, choose one moment this week where you let your preference take the lead, so to speak, and see what happens. Reason number 4 that was given, I've masked so long, I don't notice it until I burn out. Yeah, in a way, masking becomes muscle memory. And so you don't feel the consequences of it until you're running on fumes. From a psychodynamic viewpoint, automatic masking can be an old identity that you've worn and that you've worn for so long. It just feels like you. So be on the lookout for when the real you peeks through. Those are clues. And also the situations they occur in. And ask yourself, what's different about this situation? Why is it that the real me is showing up here, but it's not in that situation? Reason number 5, masking feels more natural. And so dropping the mask would feel weird. This is incredibly common. The mask becomes familiar, even if it's draining. The um, the predictability that goes along with masking is, in other words, knowing what to expect from neurotypical people when you have your mask on. It's what keeps you feeling safe. So, from a cognitive behavioral perspective, your brain may believe masking equals normal, but beliefs can be updated. And a good way of doing this is to do some experimenting and prove things to yourself, maybe to the contrary. So, for example, try unmasking for a brief moment of time and in a situation that you feel safe. Use your real voice, your real posture, or your real expression. You may discover that nothing bad happens and that you just showed your brain that unmasking can be normal too. Here's reason number 6. I don't take off my mask because of a lack of trust. I always seem to be in fight or flight. You know, when your nervous system is constantly braced for something threatening or bad, unmasking can feel like being in one of those epic, Lord of the Rings battles, with all those horses and warriors and all this stuff without any armor. Now, from a psychodynamic perspective, old relational wounds shape how you expect people to treat you now. So notice which person in your current social circle proves that they're trustworthy. You may already know that, who that is. And this is where unmasking can start. Reason number 7, judgmental people. Yeah, some people simply don't get it. And they judge you for not behaving like a quote normal person should behave. That's closed-mindedness at its finest, and certainly isn't your fault. From a motivational interviewing perspective, you get to choose whose opinions matter, even though judgmental people might try to convince you that their opinions are the right ones. So ask yourself, do I even want or need acceptance from this person or that person, the ones who are judgmental? Their reactions to you will become less impactful if the answer to that question is no. And you remind yourself of that in the moment. Reason number 8, fear of rejection, ostracism, or abandonment. Yeah, fear of losing connection to others is one of the strongest human fears, whether you're autistic or neurotypical. And from a trauma-informed perspective, that's legitimate. The fear often comes from past experiences of being left out in some form or fashion. So I think what you can try in this situation is what I talked about previously in terms of finding a safe person. Make an effort to build connections slowly with people who value personal connections, who show an interest in you, the real you, and who you judge to be safe. Reason number 9, I don't have tenure in my job. I worry that unmasking will be used against me. Okay, that's a valid point. And unfortunately, many workplaces feel unsafe, especially when power dynamics are at play. From a motivational interviewing point of view, you have the right to balance authenticity with safety, but you need to sprinkle common sense into the mix too, because you don't want to screw yourself over. So ask yourself, what's one small way I can be more myself at work that still feels safe and will allow me to maintain my employment? Reason number 10, fear of losing friends or people not liking the real me. Here's the thing. Unmasking does change relationships, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. But you don't want that to prevent you from being who you really want to be. And deserve to be. Cognitive behavioral therapy would have you question your uneasiness about losing friends if that's something that you're worried about. You may be automatically, predicting loss of friendships before it even happens. So try this. Test out being a little more of your true self with a friend. If you feel it's safe, be honest with them about something that's important to you, to be true to yourself in relationships and see how they react. This gets back to that idea of sharing a small truth with someone and seeing what happens. Okay, reason number 11, not wanting to come off as annoying. Many autistic adults were told their excitement or their intensity was over the top or maybe dramatic in the past. In terms of psychodynamic therapy, you may still hear those old voices calling you annoying. So try this, the return to sender technique. When the word annoying pops up, or whatever the word is, imagine it arriving like a package you didn't order. One of those big crushed Amazon boxes that are sitting on your porch. And do this in your mind. Pick up the annoying box. Notice the shipping label. It's addressed to the old you. And then take a red Sharpie marker and write on it, "Not mine, return to sender," and set it outside your mental door. Picture the delivery truck taking it back where it came from. The reason this works is because it separates their perceptions of you from how you see yourself or how you want to see yourself. Your brain learns, this isn't me. This was something that others imposed on me. Okay? Reason number 12. My family said I was rude anytime I spoke up for myself. Being punished for advocating for yourself teaches you that your voice is either threatening, irrelevant, invalid, whatever the case. This is classic invalidation, and it leaves an indelible mark on you. This is where you might practice advocating for yourself in safe places first. But you might have to convince yourself of two things: that it's safe to speak up for yourself, and that what you have to say matters. Reason number 13, I don't know who I am unmasked. The mask and I feel fused. This is identity confusion, which is totally normal after decades of masking. Now, here's the thing. Your brain may think the mask is the real you, but that's just a belief. It's not a fact. So try telling yourself, that's my mask. It's not me. Whenever you notice yourself acting in a way that doesn't align with who you truly are, and that'll take some effort and time on your part. You'll need to make it a goal to be aware of times when your masked self is taking the lead, so to speak, and to think of it as the impersonator in how you want to do things differently. Reason number 14. It's hard to unmask around people who knew the masked version of me for so long. Yeah, people get used to the version of you that made them comfortable. Motivational interviewing would have you ask yourself, well, what would make unmasking with these people worth it? So whatever the answer is to that question will be a motivator to be an unmasked version of yourself in some small way, and to do it with a person whom you think would be open to you acting differently in a way that's a truer version of you. Okay, the final one, reason number 15. People aren't patient or kind with behavior outside neurotypical norms. You know what? This isn't just a perception. Some neurotypical people can be really impatient and even harsh. And most of the time, they don't even realize how they're coming across to you. From a psychodynamic perspective, you might still be bracing for the criticism you got in childhood or even as an adult. So try exploring the emotional roots of that expectation. And from a cognitive behavioral perspective, it's important to remember that not everyone is impatient. Not everyone is unkind if you don't behave within neurotypical norms. That's an important thing to tell yourself. And once again, to seek out people who are open to allowing you to be your true self. And that's going to take some time. So just start lowering the mask slowly and allow people to adjust to the real you. Okay, so across the 15 reasons autistic adults shared, several themes stood out. A fear of being misunderstood or judged, a lifetime of conditioning to prioritize others' comfort, painful past experiences of rejection or criticism, and a deep uncertainty about who they truly are beneath the mask. Masking becomes second nature, often so automatic that many adults don't even notice that they're doing it until burnout hits. Well, if you're curious about exploring unmasking, remember that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Simple experiments like sharing a genuine preference, expressing a natural facial reaction, allowing yourself to stim in a safe space, or speaking in your natural tone, that can help you reconnect with your authentic self without overwhelming your system. And also remember that unmasking is a journey of rediscovery, not a destination you have to reach overnight. Now, if today's episode resonates with you, and if you're wondering what life could look like with less masking, more self-understanding, and a stronger sense of authenticity, I'd invite you to join me in my online course, Unmasked, Living Authentically as an Autistic Adult. This course is designed to support autistic adults like you, especially newly diagnosed adults, meaning within the past few years, going step by step as you explore your identity, build self-compassion, and practice sustainable, gentle forms of unmasking. Here's the thing. You don't have to take this journey alone. If you're ready to learn more with other autistic adults, shoot me an email and I'll place you on a waiting list. It's getting so close to being ready now. Have a great rest of the day, and remember, your uniqueness is awesome.